What's going on, YouTube? Wednesday has rolled around again and it's time for another Lion review. The product we've got in store for you today is it's quite an interesting one. It's produced by the Lion brand, but it's not a chocolate bar. When we had to send one of our agents fairly far afield to find it. It is Nestle's Lion cereal. That's right, here it is. You may have heard of this before, but I bet you've never seen it. This is the famed, the legendary Lion cereal. Now, I'm going to start off with a little bit of myth busting. A lot of the people that I see around on the street when I'm talking to them about Lion cereal, they call it Lion bar cereal. Now, this is a dangerous misconception because, as you can see, the word bar is nowhere on the packaging. This is not a cereal based around the Lion bar. This is a cereal based around the Lion brand. It is, it's got the spirit of the Lion in the fearsome crunch, the caramel and chocolate, but it's not simply just a cereal adaptation, if you want to say it that way, of the Lion bar. It is its own beast. So, looking at the box first, we can see that on the front there is the triumphant lion roaring, as seen on all Lion products, the Lion logo with the interesting addition of the word cereal, which indicates that what you're going to eat is not a Lion bar, but is a bowl of cereal. You can see they've got a quite nice looking picture of the cereal itself, with chocolate flakes and caramel flakes and, well, a splash of milk in a brown chocolate bowl, or chocolate coloured bowl. There's an indication of what the cereal is based around. It says caramel and chocolate cereal, and it's on a rather interesting background, actually. It's on a small brown quadrilateral that's roughed up around the edges, and particularly towards this edge, which I think is supposed to indicate the power of the Lion's roar emanating across the page. You can see that there's 13 servings, which is a pretty good number of servings. I would have preferred something that's divisible by, say, 3 or 4 or 5, because that way you can more easily divide it between the family, and then over each day there won't be a day when multiple people get Lion cereal but not everyone does. 13 being a prime number doesn't have this unless you have a family of 13 people, which is fairly uncommon amongst our viewers, I think. You can see at the very top it has a standard Nestle green bar, which indicates that it contains whole grain, which is all very good. It's a good source of fibre, which means that you won't be roaring like a lion when you go to the bathroom. And there's the little Nestle trademark there. There's actually a lot of information all over this package. Unlike the box we had last time, which had the same thing on 3 sides, and then the back side, and then the top side, and then pretty much nothing on the bottom. So that makes for about 3 different images to analyze. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All distinct. Some of them are pretty standard. This one just has the same thing as the front, but it has a little bit of nutritional information and a logo of Cereal Partners Worldwide, which indicates that Nestle has partnered with General Mills, which of course makes some of our favourite cereals. On the back, we've got the same picture on all the other sides. We've got the same picture of the Lion cereal. This time there's a spoon indicating how you're supposed to eat it. The Lion cereal logo, and a nice little box saying chocolatey, with a subheading of irresistible chocolate, caramel, sumptuous caramel, cereal. And it tells us that Lion cereal is the king of cereals. Now, the box as a whole is quite nice, but this design here I think is rather disgusting. It's bezeled around the outside, it has a drop shadow, but it also has text with a drop shadow in 2 different fonts, in multiple different colours, neither of which are nice. And it just doesn't fit in with the bold styles of the rest of the pack, which is a shame. I'll tell you some of the more of the information. There's the ingredients, which I won't read out to you because that would probably take a long time. Nestle logo may contain nuts, may contain peanuts and nuts. because, well, if it contains nuts, then if it contains peanuts, it probably contains nuts. So I'm not sure why they put both on. Maybe peanuts aren't nuts. I think I heard that somewhere. Anyway, moving on. They have the nutritional info. They've got the nutritional info on the back as well as the side, which is very nice, because it means it's easier to find it, I suppose. They've got a nice recommendation of how to eat it. For nutritional breakfast, you have a serving of Lion cereal with 125 milliliters of milk, a glass of water, and one of your 5 a day, which is expected to be fresh fruit. I shan't be going for the fresh fruit part when I review this, because that would introduce, I think, too much variation that I couldn't control for in terms of the experience of the whole cereal, but I have got my glass of water here, and, well, we'll be talking about the milk later. On the top and bottom, it's fairly standard. It's pretty much the same as any other Nestle cereal, so I won't bore you with the details. But there's a very nice touch, which is that the barcode, if you can see that, the barcode has been given a little nature design around the outside to look like it's grass. I think we're ready to go on with the review then. Just going to take a look at ease of opening when it comes to the box. They've got a fairly standard tab on the top. And if I put my finger under here, I should be able to get that in there, move it to the right, move it to the left. That was actually a beautiful opening. I've seen many cereal boxes that don't work quite that well. So I'm very impressed to see Nestle pulling through on this one. When we open up the box, the first thing we are presented with is, of course, the interior bag. So I shall take this out. Remember this box, but from now on we're going to be looking at this, the cereal in its bag, which I hope is going to be good to open. Just looking at the distribution throughout the whole thing first, there's no, in fact, I can see no evidence at all of redistribution of smaller particles towards the bottom and larger particles towards the top, which is a real issue with some cereals, especially muesli. But here, as you can see, all of the individual parts are roughly the same size and they're consistent all the way through, so you're not going to be getting any crummy balls towards the end of the pack. Looking at ease of opening, I'm going for a standard opening for the middle method, although you could probably do either end. It's not the best, but it hasn't broken yet. There. That has opened very nicely. As you can see, there are no tears down the side, only small amounts of distortion on the places where I pulled it. So that is what I would say is a good opening for a box of cereal. Now, onto the first bowl. This one, I'm just going to quickly pour out a bowl of Lion cereal and put it with some semi-skimmed milk, the most neutral of milks. Oh, that smells very good. It's got quite a rich, homey smell. It's got, you can actually distinctly smell both the chocolate and the caramel when you open the pack. Anyhow, as I was saying, I'm going to just give it a splash of semi-skimmed milk, and this, actually I'll give it a bit more than a splash, which you will understand why later. This is a bowl that I have put together to test how it sustains over time. So I'm just going to put that aside while I do the taste tests, and we'll come back to it. Okay, now on to the taste test. Of course, everyone eats their cereal differently, and everyone eats their cereal with different types of milk. And the box, unfortunately, you can see that it recommends it recommends the quantity of milk to have, 125 milliliters, and it recommends the quantity of cereal to have, which is 30 grams, but it doesn't recommend which type of milk you should have, which I suppose is good in terms of universal appeal, but it means that I'm going to have to review 3 different types of milk with this cereal today. So I've got my 3 bowls. As you can see here, I have whole, semi-skimmed and skimmed milk on ice to make sure that they're as fresh as possible. These have been bought less than an hour before now. And I, of course, am going to be measuring out the correct amounts of cereal and milk in order to get the best impression of how it tastes, as intended by Nestle. So, starting off with the skimmed, we're going to work our way up to the whole. There we go. This is what Nestle recommends that your bowl of cereal should look like. It's a decent portion size, especially when you consider that the bowl is a conical shape rather than a domed shape, which means that it takes on the same volume will take on a different form in the bowl and will look slightly different. I think this would sustain me for breakfast, but I would require a big lunch having eaten this. I'm just going to mix it up a little bit, make sure we get some variation in the dry and wet portions of the cereal. Here we go, the first taste. So, from the first few seconds of milk exposure, the cereal isn't particularly receptive to the milk. Being a modern cereal, it more sort of sits in the milk rather than taking the milk into itself, which means that it's quite crunchy, which is good as an emulator of a Lion bar. But what it does mean is that it takes a little bit of effort to work your way through this. It's got a very good texture. The subtle variety of shapes, I think you can see that some of these shapes are triangular or 3-pointed, and some of them are 4-pointed, sort of lobed stars. And that means that you're always going to be slightly kept on your toes in terms of the textures in your mouth. Onto the flavors. The caramel flavor is quite strong. The chocolate, not so much. I think you might be able to see this, but there's a little bit of disparity. It looks like there's a bit more caramel than chocolate, which might be what's causing me to feel this way about the taste of the cereal. So each individual part, if I can isolate one of each. They're quite crunchy. The caramel, I'm not sure how to feel about this because on the whole, when you eat it, the caramel is it's a stronger flavour than the chocolate. It doesn't taste like Cocoa Pops or anything. But in terms of the individual ones I tasted, the caramel tasted quite weak, in fact, for an individual piece. In terms of milk, this is the semi-skimmed milk. I have a fear that once I reach the end of the cereal, there's going to be milk left over, which would be quite dissatisfying, particularly given the fact that this is the recommended quantity of milk that Nestle allows. Some pieces are definitely taking on milk and softening up more than others. I would definitely recommend that when you eat this cereal, you make sure to regularly redistribute the dry and the wet pieces, because the dry pieces can be quite tough relative to what you would expect. On the whole, it's a good cereal. It does make me think back to my days of eating Lion bars as a child. But it's a shame that there's no distinctive roar in the cereal bowl as there is in a Lion bar. Although, of course, there's no feasible way to execute that. As we move on, the flavour is decreasing as it disperses into the milk. So the cereal itself becomes less interesting. Now, here you can see the quantity of milk that's left over, which I think is actually very respectable, given that in any cereal it's not possible to feasibly have no milk left over, because that means that the very first few spoonfuls will be completely dry. The milk itself has taken on a quite brown colour, as you'd expect with a chocolate cereal like this. But again, it tastes more of caramel than of chocolate. If someone sold me this as chocolate milk, I wouldn't be happy, although I think that may be partly due to the skimmed nature. Well, there we go. That is Lion cereal with skimmed milk.